On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to increase your consulting retainers.
Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
Hello and welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 10. In this episode, we're going to be talking about increasing prices, and ideally increasing prices in that space of retainer. The idea that you are being paid ideally on a monthly basis, retaining your services and retaining your expertise and advice for the business that you're working with. Now, it doesn't have to be a business, obviously. It could be an organization. It could be an entity, a government department. There's all sorts of different people you could be working with. But the concept of increasing that retainer is one that comes up a lot when I'm speaking to not just new consultants, but consultants that have been around for 20 plus years. Now, there are multiple aspects to this question, but my question to you is, when was the last time you increased your prices? Now, out there in the world, inflation is going up. Prices of just about everything have gone through the roof. You see prices on property doubling every 10 years, and a lot of that's going even faster. The question is, are you keeping up with that inflation, with that increase in costs? So I'd be interested to ask you that question and get your feedback. When was the last time you actually did that in your business? Now, for many people, it's a case of, well, I've been doing it this way all this time. It's easier for me to close a client. It's easier for me to engage a client if I don't put up those prices. But there's a couple of things that come into it. So number one, what is that saying to the sector? What is it saying to your area of expertise? If your area of expertise is not increasing in value, increasing in price, increasing in a fair exchange of dollars and cents over the years while everything else is, does that mean that the value that you're providing to your clients is diminishing over time? My suggestion, hopefully, is that it wouldn't be, and that your value will often be going up. Now, one of the points around value is, how do you go about quantifying that? So in almost every case, we want to make sure that we're quantifying it to some form of dollar value. Now, there are ways to do that. Obviously, within a business, if you're doing helping the business grow from $1 value to another, one revenue to another, there is a very easy way to actually show the gap that you've bridged. All right, so let's say that we've got a business that's earning, say, $500,000, and we're going to get them to $1 million. Okay, that's a $500,000 increase, and it should be absolutely fair that someone would pay maybe 1/10 of that, right? So we're looking at $50,000 to make that happen. Now, that's just a rule of thumb. There are all sorts of different ways of doing pricing, and that's certainly not the only way. There's increasing in prices. There's decreasing of costs. There is making things faster. There is de-risking things. A lot of the value in that many consultants bring to the table is de-risking the future for people, making it more likely that they're going to get to a certain place, or that bad things are not going to happen. At the top, and I say top in that the big heavy areas of value tend to be cost-based or risk-based, and then moving up from that, it's usually productivity or efficiency. How do you make something faster, or how do you make something potentially perform better? And then at the top, you've got things like quality. Is the quality of the thing that you're bringing in going to be increased? Now, interestingly enough, in the work that we've done and many of my colleagues, the quality question becomes much less of a value-based focus, because while you may increase the quality, often that quality is subjective. Now, there are ways, obviously, of measuring, but the buyer themselves, the person who's making a decision on the value increase, will often see a subjective decision on that. So we want to quantify things down to, obviously, a dollar figure. Now, you could be helping someone in their life. Let's say that you're a consultant to individuals, a business-to-consumer style approach. Now, in that, there could be helping them with all sorts of things, everything from addiction to moving to a new space to having a change in lifestyle. So enabling your ability to quantify those will go a very, very long way for you, selling on value to increase that price. So what would the cost of moving from one place to another be? And how can you decrease the cost or decrease the time and effort and speed involved? And can you quantify that? So helping someone who has a situation in their life, whether that be mental health based, addiction based, other things that are not in the way that they want, if they were remove the problem, if you could remove the problem, what would that be worth to them? And there are some quantifiable, specific, valuable pieces, the things that they're spending money on, the things that they're losing money on, but there's also the time-based, the people that they're losing in their lives, the time that things are taking, the lost opportunity that comes into their lives. So for you, it's about quantifying that value. Now, the quantification, a lot of the time, is just for you as the consultant. You're very logical in the way you think. You're thinking about, how do I get someone from here to there? But the buyer, a lot of the time, is not, which means that the reality when it comes to increasing your prices and understanding your value is to really understand what is your value to the buyer. Because the value to the buyer may be far higher than what your perception of your value is. And having them quantify it can often be a much better practice, a much better process that you would use through the buying cycle. Right? Now, some examples of that are when I've asked people in the past, and just straw polls, on events and all sorts of different spaces, if I could give you $100,000 today, how much would you pay for it? And usually, 80% of the time, people will say above 50%. A lot of people will say 80%. Some people will say 90%, so $90,000, $80,000. Some people will say $50,000. Every now and then you'll get someone who'll say maybe $20,000, but you rarely get to the $10,000. And so that 1 in 10 as a really obvious exchange of value becomes a really nice rule of thumb. And but it's interesting because if you're making the decision for them, if you're defining the process and the price for them, then a lot of the time you can be missing opportunity by not actually allowing them to define the value of the thing that you're offering. All right, now that can be project-based, that can be product-based, service-based. Really what we want to be talking about today is retainers. So when we're talking retainers, though, it's about this ongoing approach, this ongoing payment to retain your services. Now, for most consultants who are being retained, there tends to be the business model, which we will talk about in a different episode, that is like, how much of a day, a week, are you contributing to the outcomes that go towards this retainer? Now, I caution you to be quantifying that down to an hourly amount of time that you determine with the client. Because when you do that, you are actually quantifying yourself down to an hourly cost that, even if it's $500 an hour, makes you an employee. Simply by the definition of you being paid hourly, you are sitting in the space of employee. If you want to move up and increase your retainer, you don't want to be judged on the hours you're working. Ideally, you want to get more money for you getting them a result much faster. And so it shouldn't be about the amount of hours that you're dedicating to something. It should be about the results that you're getting. So in a previous podcast, we have talked about sort of how do you look at the value and your perception of value and your position of value with the client. If you're being paid hourly, you will tend to be paid for activities. So if you're doing activities for a client, you don't tend to be an advisor. So if you want to step into the advisory space, you want to take a step above that and at the very least be paid for delivery, results. How are we actually getting you a thing done? That could be a project, that could be a specific implementation of something inside their organization. What is that for them, or within their life, or whatever it is, whoever the client is? That's the service delivery. That's the service provider, which makes you a service provider. And while there are some elements of expertise in service providing, there is also an element of advisory in the process of service provider. It's not the space where most people are retained for their expertise. So expertise of knowledge, the knowledge expertise, the advisory expertise. So if you want to have a place, if you want to have a business that actually is retained for your expertise in the knowledge, your experience, your networks, those sort of things, where it's not quantifiable down to time, then here is the step that I'm going to suggest that you take. And it is very much tied to responsibilities. Tying yourself to responsibilities around the organization you're working with and taking care of that side of things will enable you to show far higher value. So an example would be, I'm going to help you launch into this new market, let's say, and my responsibility is making that happen. I'm not waiting on you as the business. I'm not waiting on the employees. I will take responsibility. I might need to actually take some direct reports within the business. There might be some things that I'll need to do, but because I'm an advisor, I know how to do these things. I can see what's coming down the pipe. I'm clear on what activities need to be done. And we want to position ourselves in that responsibility to not be at the mercy of other people. So if we're at the mercy of other people, if we're waiting on people to get back to us, then we will lose our position in advisor. We can slip straight down into service provider and even further down into employee if the client is having to manage us. So the professionalism side of being a consultant, being an advisor, comes very much into the space of how are we approaching this situation, this outcome that we're helping them deliver. If we're taking responsibility and we're not needing the client to, usually we want their involvement, we want their engagement, we want them to be part of it. But if we're requiring them to make that happen, and we know simply through our process that they're not going to do the things that need to be done, then we're really setting ourselves up into a corner. We're painting ourselves into a corner, which means at the end of the day, even if we're retained for 2-3 months, if we're not getting the result, if we're not showing the progress, if we're not actually creating those milestones and helping people see the evidence of the momentum, then not only are we going to get a bad reputation in the market because we're not delivering what we need to deliver, but it means that we're not going to have those longer term opportunities. So rather than having a 1, 2, 3 month retainer, we could be looking at 18 months worth of retained work. And really, the responsibility, owning a responsibility, is where you can get large amounts of cash, basically, paid monthly. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say, so we want to increase the market. We'll take another example. We're going to help you increase your profits. All right, another example. We're going to help build your sales team. Another example is that we're going to decrease, let's say we're going to decrease your costs, which will then create profit. It will increase the profit. And so if we take responsibility for that, yes, there's the planning part of the activity. Yes, there is the strategic side, but then there's also the how it's going to happen. And you, as the advisor going into that space, it is your job really to foresee the challenges that come up from the business model that they're using, the people that they have on to use as resources, the general resources throughout the business, other contextual issues, real SWOT analysis, but not just pie in the sky SWOT analysis, but SWOT analysis that is very much built on what's really happening in this business. If you're not doing all that work, then you're really not advising properly. You're not setting your expertise in the best opportunity to succeed. So if we want to increase, we want to go from a place of delivering products, delivering projects, which is where a lot of consultants sit, to delivering outcomes. And so you may be getting $5,000 a month to help someone roll certain things out in the business, or create certain projects, or prepare for certain projects. But if you then say, we are going to get you from here to there, we're going to actually own the responsibility to move you up, then the value of what you're delivering will be far higher, because it's not even a case of you're going to show them how and then it's off to them to actually implement. You're actually going to work with them to make that happen. Now, you don't have to work in a production capacity. I want to say that out loud. You just work in an advisory capacity and a strategic capacity. But in that strategic capacity, you need to be able to look tactically and say, what is going to happen in the business? What is happening in the business, and how do we pivot? So if you want to continue to have high retainers working within organizations, then your ability to foresee things happening, advise the client before they do because you see them coming down the pipe, and pivoting or changing to achieve the outcome faster will go a very long way to not only you receiving those retainers, but people being very, very happy to pay them. All right, so responsibility, adding that to the mix will be the thing. So how do people perceive your value? How are you adding responsibility and outcomes to the things you're talking about rather than just projects, activities, delivery type mechanisms? They're going to increase your outcomes. The third one is actually just asking for more money. Now, you might even just start from the next engagement that you have. You're just going to put your prices up. So I'm not going to be $5,000 a month. I'm $7,000 a month, or I'm $8,000 a month. That simple step of asking, while the rest of the world is increasing their prices through inflation and cost of living and all these other things, it's maybe about time that you simply did that. You just increased your ask. What is the question? What is the price? It's this, and you'll be surprised at if you have a solid process in sales, then you will often get the difference between 5,000 and 7,000 for an outcome based delivery will be next to nothing in their eyes. It'll be next to nothing. Now you may be working much bigger projects. You might be working on $400,000, $1 million, these sort of projects. That's the same thing there. In fact, even easier there. So if you're used to tendering or you're used to putting down dollar figures of say 400,000, increase it by 10%, increase it by 20%. Make that profit, increase that profit, do those things in your own business. And if you're already working for other people, working with other people, if you're already retained and you're looking to increase the price in that retainer, then my suggestion would be to review value. Review value, you're going back and you're having a discussion about the value that's being added or about the value you want to add on top, and you're renegotiating the deal. Anytime that you go to put your prices up, it is a renegotiation of sorts. My suggestion is to have a conversation about that. Make sure that you're talking about the value that's going to be increased or the speed, value in all the different aspects of how you're going to increase value through the process, and put those prices up. If you're just talking about the cost of living increase, therefore you're putting up prices, you may get away with it. But my suggestion would be to deliver it around value. Now, here's the other thing, and just my final point that I want to make on retainers in general, is that let's say that you have approximately, and it's in your mind, approximately a day a week allocated to this client. And that means that you may think, well, I've got 5 days in the week because I want to work 5 days a week, or I've got 4 days in the week because I want to work 4 days a week, therefore I can take 5 clients, or I can take 4 clients, or maybe I can even juggle it, and maybe I can spend a little bit more time on one for 1 week and a little bit more time on the other for the rest. I want to caution you on taking too many clients on, because there should be a portion of your business time, I think it's about 20%, where you have to be working on your business. Now, there's 2 areas of that I think that are incredibly important. Number 1 is improving your business, improving the abilities of your business, evolving your business, getting better at the work that you do, understanding the new context that you're working in and understanding the industry, and having those conversations so that you can be keeping a pipeline of customers warm, so that if you lose, let's say you've got 4 clients and you lose one, you don't suddenly lose 25% of your entire revenue in one hit. You want to keep that ball rolling. So that's on one side. You've got improving the business, so you're increasing your value consistently. But on the other side, keeping the pipeline of your business moving so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you haven't been doing prospecting, you haven't been doing conversations, you haven't been talking to referrals for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and then suddenly you lose a client, lose 25% of your income, and you have to start your momentum from scratch. That's de-risking your business. You want to de-risk the business by ensuring you're continuing to keep momentum in the sales process, even if you only want 3 to 4 clients. So give yourself at least 20% of your week to working on the business activities, which is increasing your abilities, the performance of what you do. Maybe it's even creating some efficiencies, so those a day a week you've allocated, you can get a few hours back in a week. Increase those efficiencies, and then on the other side, making sure that your sales process, your pipeline continues to work. And I'll talk about more next week about the specific models of doing that, how those retainer models work, and we will be talking about exiting an organization. You don't want to be too stuck in an organization, why you would continue doing the pipeline, how you can be auditioning clients, and I'll talk about that in the next episode. But if you are looking to have retainers, obviously make sure that you are providing those retainers on value. How you're creating value for those people each month. Increasing the value of what you're doing is simply a case of making sure that you're quantifying it, making sure that you're having the discussion with the client that they are quantifying it and they understand the value that you're giving. If you want a longer term retainer, which again we'll talk about next week, making sure the communication channel is very, very open and that you're actually getting those results, you're getting the outcomes, the milestones on those outcomes. And if you haven't in a long time, maybe it is simply time to put up your prices. Now, you may want to keep the same prices with your existing customers, but you may not want to as well. You may want to go back and do that negotiation, but certainly for new customers, we want to make sure that you are putting your prices up in a way that you're continuing to be effective in the market. It's interesting, it's surprising actually, how many people won't choose you because you're too cheap. It's the old concept of no one was fired for buying an IBM because there's a trusted number that people are happy to spend. And if you're not at least getting to that mark, then a lot of people won't believe that you can actually do the things that you say that you can do. All right. So retainers, increase your prices. I think there's never been a better time than right now to do that. If you're looking for a process, if you're looking for a solid process about how you can go about doing that, how you can do it consistently, maybe you want to increase your prices each year, get better clients every year, increase those fees, higher value, and have a business that is so much easier to run. If you want to actually go 2-3 days a week, increase let's say client days a week, increase the value of those client days so you're actually making more money but working less, or doing any of those things, then feel free to reach out to me, because that's what we help consultants and advisors do. People who have a business around expertise, we help them get better clients, higher fees, have a higher performing business, and making sure that they have a pipeline of quality clients that they can be auditioning every day, every week, or every month. My name is Russell Pearson. If you want to check me out, go to russellpearson.com, or we can connect on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. And if you'd like to find some more resources about this podcast and what we've got around it, consultingbusinesspodcast.com is a place that you can check that out. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe there. If you're listening to it on your podcast platform, subscribe there. If you'd like to see the video version, go to YouTube. And if you're on the video version and you'd like to get something you can listen to in your car or when you're traveling around, make sure to look us up on your podcast platform of preference, your Consulting Business Podcast with Russell Pearson. Until I'm stumbling on my words today. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on your Consulting Business Podcast. Make sure to click the subscribe button for future updates, and also make sure to go to consultingbusinesspodcast.com for goodies made especially for you by yours truly. I will see you on the site.